Hello, good morning. Going first, jeez. It's a good thing this isn't live. Oh, wait, it is. All right, well, today I would like to change the way that you think of design. Because sometimes when we think of design, we think of this very uncomfortable chair that is smooth and beautiful, but let's face it, you don't want to sit on it for more than 5 minutes. So if that's your idea of design, just throw that away, because that's old design. Now, new design is about a process. New design is about a way of thinking, and it's a way of thinking that helps you solve problems. Actually, many times, they don't even have to be objects in the end. So if design thinking is about a process, and you don't really need to have an object in the end, what happens if you use design to save your life? I want to tell you the story of this man called Matthias, who was kidnapped by rebels, and he used design thinking in order to save his life. So design is divided into 3 parts. There's research, there's creation, and then there's making it all happen in a very strategic way. Now, the first part of the process is to reframe the problem. Because first, we need to make sure that we're solving the right problem. So Matthias, locked up in this room, he knows that he can't really escape, because that's a bad idea. He knows that he can't negotiate from the inside, because that's up to whoever is helping him from the outside, but he really knows that he wants to do something. So he realizes that the best thing to do is to send a message to his family and tell them that he's okay. So the second part of this process is to identify who you need to talk to. So Matthias, from his window, he could peek outside and see that his captors were all dressed like militaries, and they seemed to work in a military-style hierarchy. But he didn't really know, so he needed to confirm this theory. The way to do this was through interviews. And so the way that Matthias had interviews was when these men would walk into his room, they'd bring him food, they'd bring him water. And one of them in particular was interesting to him because he had a hooded sweater, but he was the only person that would look at him in the eyes. And in order to find out where he stood in the pyramid, if in fact it was in a hierarchy, he performed a little experiment. And so he asked this man for a Bible. And the man did exactly what Matthias thought he would do. He said maybe, and then he walked away. As soon as he walked away, Matthias ran to the window and peeked outside the bars and saw that the man walked over to somebody, asked him a question, who then went to somebody else and then asked him another question. This led him to conclude that yes, it does work in a military-style hierarchy because Matthias couldn't go to the leader first. And it also led him to understand that he was very low in that pyramid and therefore didn't really have much power. He also never got the Bible. Part of the observation process is also to just observe what's around you. You don't know if you're going to use it or not, but just make sure that you have it on your list, that it's there. So outside his window, he saw that there was a tomato farm, and he also saw a Coca-Cola billboard far in the distance and just took note of it. Then we do insights. So insights are little aha moments from the design process that aren't really solutions, but they're the ones that help you find opportunities later. So in this case, he realized that this hooded man was going to be his best ally because he was young, he was inexperienced, and he was most likely going to be the one who would make mistakes. From the tomato farm, he thought, well, if this is a cover-up, they're going to have to keep up appearances. So they're going to have to go to the market whenever there's harvest, which means we'll have contact with farmers. And Coca-Cola is not really going to have a billboard in a place without many people, so there has to be people around wherever I am. Then from insights, we go to opportunities. Now, opportunities are not solutions per se, but they're a stepping stone towards them. So in this case, they would begin with something like, how might I? We usually would begin in how might we, because designers work in a team. But in this case, you can't. So how might I become friends with my captors? Or how might I reach local farmers that I know are nearby? And then is the fun part. Then is brainstorming, which is what many designers are known for, the big walls full of sketches. And brainstorming is when all ideas count. No idea is ever a bad idea, and you put as many as you possibly can, and usually start with what if. So then from brainstorming, we need to prototype, right? So in order to prototype, Matthias needed to get closer to his captors. And he wanted to get closer to the hooded man. So he walks up to him and, in his Latin charm kind of way, says, oh, why don't you tell me about your girlfriend and about, do you have anybody? And he says, yes, well, but she's very far away and I can't really talk to her because we're not allowed to have phones here. and I can't really write love letters. So Matthias says, well, awesome, I can help you. Why don't we sit down and we'll draft some letters? And so they sit down, and as you can imagine, he starts sketching them out, and they all go wrong, and so they throw drafts away, and he starts to pull little pieces of paper and put them in his pocket. Then he pretends like the pencil tip breaks, and then he puts that into his pocket. And he goes back to his room and writes 3 notes that say, help me, I'm kidnapped. Please call my father. I see a Coca-Cola billboard. But what good is an idea without an implementation plan, right? So Matthias first goes and befriends again this hooded man, and he says, you know, I'm locked up in my room. I'm tired all day. I see that you have a tomato farm outside. Why don't you let me help you, and I'll do some exercise. And so he manages to convince them that he works in the tomato farm, and knowing how dangerous he could be, he puts these 3 little notes into the tomato boxes, waiting for partners to find these and then call his father. So he waits patiently. And before I continue, I want to tell you that this is a true story. This happened in Colombia in the 90s, and Matthias was not a designer, but he knew to understand people. He knew to not rely on one idea, and he knew to strategize a good implementation plan, which are the principles of design thinking. So, I'll show you what happened. After some time, this woman found the box. She pulled out some tomatoes, this little piece of paper rolled out, and she called the father. Then the father immediately called the people that were helping with the negotiation, which was actually my dad and how I know of the story. And so my father called the gorilla, and they asked for a proof of life. As soon as they asked for proof of life, they found the 3 antennas that lit up in the area where this phone call was coming from. So they knew that he had to be inside this triangle, but they didn't know where in that triangle. That's a pretty big area. So within that triangle, they find 1 billboard. And they send soldiers up who stands up on the billboard with binoculars. And under the principle of, if I see you, you see me, they only find 3 houses and 1 with a tomato farm. Now, Matthias today is happily at home with his family, thanks to design thinking, a whole lot of charisma, and a little bit of patience. So, can design save the world? Well, not alone. Because design is just a piece. It's a little piece inside of this giant puzzle. And this giant puzzle has other pieces like design, like art, history, you name it. And design is that little piece that has empathy, it has creativity, and it has practicality all in one. And it's only this piece together with all of the other pieces that we can really have a chance at changing the world. Thank you.